Hanging out with you. We are Sports Take. All right, Derek. So update from the Eagles. They have signed Nicholas Morrow to the active roster. They signed Rashaan Evans to the practice squad, and they placed Nakobe Dean on the injured reserve. None of it surprising.
4 games.
Right, exactly. That means locked in now. He will not be playing in the next 4 games. Nicholas Morrow, who was initially cut, then brought back to the practice squad, is now active, and Rashaan Evans, who was originally a high pick in the NFL, is on the practice squad. So you definitely took a hit depth-wise at a position that you were already pretty thin at.
So let me see now. We're looking at Nicholas Morrow, Christian Ellis, Zach Cunningham, and Rashaan Evans.
Yep.
We got a problem.
Yeah, it's not good enough. Look, you knew it was questionable to begin with.
Yeah. We got a problem. We got a major problem at linebacker. And if that's what they're going to go with from now until who knows when, that's going to be a big problem. Big time problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And you know, Bradbury not being in this game, that's going to be a problem.
Here's what I'll tell you, Derek. They better get to the quarterback.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. You cannot let Cousins stand back there 4 or 5 seconds patting the ball, looking for Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison or Hockenson down the middle.
Yeah.
That's a bad mixture right there, man.
It is. It is. So look, this is also where I do wonder. And again, you know, the problem you run into is if anybody's good enough, why would a team possibly trade him? But I wonder if Howie isn't scouring and talking to some, you know, GMs and trying to figure something out in terms of making a trade. You know, it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening there.
Well, if there was a time where the Eagles could make trades, it would be now. They have 12 draft picks already next year.
Tons for next year. Yeah.
You know, with all the compensatory picks they're going to get, they have 12 or 13 draft picks. If there was ever a time you wanted to make a splash trade to get somebody of name as a linebacker, now would be it.
Yep. No question about it. All right. So let's hit a couple things that are going on around the league. Of course, the big story is last night. And we know that Aaron Rodgers torn Achilles, done for the season. You know, certainly just mind-blowing that the guy played 3 plays and then on the next one he blows out his Achilles. They did win the game somehow, some way on a walk-off punt return. But, you know, the fact that they hung around enough, yeah, they deserve some props, you know, for sure, for what they were able to do. But now all of a sudden that just throws into question everything for them for the rest of the season in what is a difficult division with a tough game coming up next against the Cowboys.
Can you imagine Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas, and the ownership of the Jets sitting behind closed doors this morning like this? Nobody's saying anything. Right. Everybody's like this. Yeah. Nothing's being said.
I was watching Good Morning Football, and Peter Schrager, who's one of their hosts, they come on, I think it's 7, something like that. He said that he had been texting with several Jets coaches who hadn't slept all night, who were so distraught over what happened.
Jeez.
And that, you know, it's tough. You know, it's tough.
It's the unknown element of the game that just drives you crazy, but it's an unknown element that you know you have to deal with. Every team deals with it. You hope you can marginalize it by not losing your big money players, especially when they're perennial Pro Bowlers, future Hall of Fame type players. But it happens. You know, it happens. They know it. You just cross your fingers and pray that it doesn't happen. Unfortunately, this one hits the Jets right between the eyes.
Yeah, so they're they're certainly reeling after that one. That's for sure. With the Jets, so we'll keep you posted if they make any move in terms of bringing in a quarterback. There's a couple different ways that they could go with this thing. Adam Kaplan, who we had on a little bit earlier, suggested maybe Flacco comes back again. Which there's the problem is, Derek. You know, we could sit here. We mentioned Matt Ryan, and you know, people are going to throw Brady's name out. Like there's just, I don't think Brady's realistic, and there's just not a lot of good options.
There's nothing out there. I mean, you think about it. There's nothing out there. Whoever they bring back, it has to be somebody that can possibly challenge Zach Wilson.
Oh, for sure.
I'm thinking, you know who I would consider? Colt McCoy.
Yes.
I would consider Colt McCoy.
Good name.
You know, been around the block a few times, can read a defense, has a decent arm. I would bring him in, put him on the practice squad, let him get acclimated for a couple of weeks in this offensive system, and then elevate him. If Zach Wilson struggles like we expect him to struggle, then nobody in the New York region will cringe if they make the announcement that Colt McCoy is not a starting quarterback.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it definitely. There's some they're talking about potentially trading for Jameis Winston,
or Bridgewater,
or Bridgewater. Yeah, but are teams going to be willing to give up their insurance policy? Because here's the thing: if you're one of those teams, you know, Bridgewater's in Detroit and Jameis Winston's in New Orleans. Think about if your guy is just out a game or two.
Yeah.
That's how you're viewing this. Like, all right, I just got to get through a couple games. And if you get through a couple games, look at the Eagles last year. You can be all right. So I'm not going to be real quick to give those guys up.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I agree. You're talking about two teams who want to change around their culture compared to what they went through last year.
Yeah.
And they feel they have the MO. Saints are happy with their new quarterback. Everybody's got pumping their chest in Detroit because they took down the defending Super Bowl champs. Sky's the limit for both teams right now. Saints playing a bad division. Detroit's playing a weakened division as well. They have everything they need to get to where they want to go. First step is get to the playoffs. Both teams have everything they need to get to where they want to go. You're right. Giving up that kind of depth, their insurance policies, it would take a lot. And even then, is it worth it for those teams?
Yeah, because if you feel like you have any legit, like Detroit believes in what they have, right? And New Orleans, I think, believes in what they have. Whatever. If you're one of those teams, I don't know. I think you want to probably hang on to those guys. All right. Other issues around the NFL. Chris Jones got paid, Derek. He stuck it out, man. Even if it's 1 year, it's more than he would have made. So he would have originally gotten about $19 million under the contract that he was in the last year of. He's going to make, could make up to $26 million this year with the Chiefs. He signed a 1-year deal just for this year. He lost $1 million last week sitting that Thursday night game out, but he could make up obviously all the fines and everything else with what he's, bringing in this year.
Well, obviously after that first game, Kansas City finally said, you know what, enough's enough. He might have been a difference maker in that game also. I mean, again, Kansas City's defense played well against that Detroit offense.
Yeah. It
wasn't a defense that cost them the game. It was their wide receivers playing with oven mitts on that cost them the game. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Even without Kelsey, they should have won that game.
Yep.
You hold Detroit, your defense without Chris Jones holds Detroit to 14 offensive points. That's a very winnable situation, especially in your backyard. In one fluke, ricochet interception is the difference in that ball game.
Totally.
One of the two big differences, I should say.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. He was let down in a very big way. He certainly was, Pat Mahomes. But they get him back, and that's already a defense that's good. That's a monster thing for them. And again, props to their defense who played very well. You're right.
Yes,
they played very well in that game. But now they get Chris Jones back, and he's expected to play this week. He was working out in Miami. All right, Pittsburgh's got some injury issues here. So Cameron Hayward is going to miss several weeks with a groin injury, Derek. Deontay Johnson also out for what they're terming as weeks with a hamstring to both of those guys.
Jeez. Yeah. As if their luck isn't bad enough. And they're trying to change things around this week against a divisional rival. Pittsburgh's defense is going to have to carry that game.
Yeah,
they're going to have to carry that game for them, And
George Pickens is going to have to go crazy.
Yeah, Pickens is going to have – well, Kenny's got to get him the ball, but you're right. Pickens has to go crazy, and that defense has to be – I think T.J. Watt had 3 sacks in that first game, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know the exact number. Maybe, yeah.
He's going to have to get some help this week for sure, and try to keep that game as low scoring as possible.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that they're not quite in the desperation the Jets are defensively, but Pittsburgh's got to step their game up because it's going to take their offense. You're right. He had 3 sacks. It's going to take their offense a little while to get going, man. Yeah, he had 3 sacks. He had 5 quarterback hits. I mean, he's in rare form. So that's going to be how they win games. And the other thing is, I just think it really does come down to Pickett, because I think Tom will have him ready this week. I don't see any way that they're not ready to play after how horrible that was. the Niners just, if it wasn't for the Giants laying down to the Cowboys, that might have been the other beatdown, second worst beatdown of the week.
I expect to see more bad football this week as well.
Yeah.
Not as bad as week 1. It's going to be a slow progression in the right direction for a lot of teams. Unfortunately, for teams like the Eagles and the Vikings, they have the short turnaround. The other teams have the extended week to get some of the problems right. Those that didn't win games, and even those who won games, to get some of the problems right. So I hope to see a much better brand of football on Sunday. One of those rare Sundays we get off.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, when you look at the names across the board who have gone down for teams already after 1 week, it's frightening in terms of what's to come.
Yeah. I'll give you another great example. Jacoby Myers, who had an unbelievable game.
Yes.
He was awesome for the Raiders.
Yes.
He's in concussion protocol now.
Jeez.
And they don't know if he's going to play on Sunday. Devontae Adams had a tough game. He had some drops, very uncharacteristic of him, et cetera. And, Myers picked up the slack. So it's that's a loss. That could be a loss.
And who are the Raiders playing this week?
I think we just talked about it, Tim. I think it was one of the
division
games. One of those decent games. All right. So what the Raiders this week, hold on. Okay, here we go. Raiders are at Buffalo.
At Buffalo. Okay.
It's a big game.
And not having Jacoby Myers.
Well, we don't know, but yeah, I mean, at least they have until Sunday. The Eagles only have till Thursday for that turnaround.
Yeah, exactly.
Stay with the injury thing here real quick. So the Ravens have elevated Melvin Gordon due to the J.K. Dobbins torn Achilles, who's out for the season. It's not a bad guy to be able to pluck off your practice squad.
No, but the concern about Melvin Gordon is, has he seen his better days?
I think that the answer is yes to that.
But you have no choice now but to rely on him in a situation like that. So it was good for them in terms of adding him in terms of depth. But what is he going to give you? What does he have left? I mean, he's only 30, but still, for running backs, 30 is old nowadays. Especially if you're a running back that has had as many carries as a Melvin Gordon has had in his career. There was a lot of time he was a feature back. I mean, early in his career, 254, 284 in terms of carries. 2020, 215, 2021, 203.
Right.
He only played 10 games last year, had 90 carries last year. So he should be fresher, but he's still 30 years old. And I don't think he's the back he was 4 or 5 years ago. And that's not a knock against him. It's just a natural progression of age as an NFL player.
No, I agree. And look, he was a bell cow for a while, and that catches up to you. There's no doubt about that. This was interesting. The Pete Carroll and DK Metcalf had a heart-to-heart about the penalties that DK seems to be taking way too much of in his career. So he's had, Derek, 8 career unsportsmanlike or unnecessary roughing penalties, which have led to disqualifications in games. And he had a couple big ones this past week that were, late. So teams are now baiting him. And he even said it after the game. He said, look, their sidelines yapping at me and I took the bait, and we know what happens. They get the guy who retaliates. So I think he realizes it, but Pete Carroll was pretty blunt about it. Like, he talked about it on his radio show and said, we love DK, but this can't keep up because it's killing us.
Yeah, and especially if it happens at crucial junctures of a game.
Yep.
DK's been in the game long enough. I'm surprised he lets this stuff get to him. You talk about a physical specimen who plays the game physically. DK Metcalf is as physical as it comes at wide receivers. But the fact that he knows that teams are baiting him and still gets involved in jaw jacking to the point where he's getting these penalties. I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
What the heck is wrong with you? You know what they're trying to do. Why do you keep falling for this crap?
Right. That's the problem. Like the problem is like nobody is fully blamed. We know people are taking cheap shots. We get it, but they're going to do that. Some backup corner or safety, he gets tossed. I'll take that. It's a win all day if DK gets tossed. You know what I'm saying? And teams know that, so they're just going to keep getting on him. He's got to be smarter. There's no other way to put. You can't have him not in the game for you if you're the Seattle Seahawks, plain and simple. So he's got to be better.
A coach shouldn't have to talk to him about this stuff, and yet here it is.
Right.
It tells me there's a volatile nature within him that has not been completely controlled yet.
Well said. But yeah, and look, part of that is what you love because he is a crazy competitor. We saw one of the great plays you'll ever see is him chasing down that guy after the interception. It's one of the greatest plays you'll ever see. So his heart's in it, but he's just got to be better. He's just got to be smarter than that.
Yeah.
All right, couple other odds and ends here. I forgot to mention this to you. So the Jets' odds to win the Super Bowl went from 16-1 to 35-1, and I'm surprised, Derek, it didn't fall more.
I am too.
Tell you.
To be honest with you, I am too. I thought it would be like maybe 100-1 by now.
Right.
And I'm going to be honest. I mean, let's be honest. Without Aaron Rodgers, I don't even know if they win more games than they lose, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, again, I hate to keep going back to this, but it really does remind me of 1991.
Yeah.
It's because that Eagles team across the board, Derek, number one in points, number one in defense against the rush, number one in defense against the pass. Seth Joyner played on that team. He'll tell you about it. They did everything they could. They won 10 games with Jeff Kemp and Pat Ryan and Ken, with just dudes playing quarterback. And they didn't get into the playoffs because the NFC was really good that year. And we didn't have as many wild card teams, but it didn't matter. When Randall went down, the offense just couldn't do anything. And I really, it's going to suck for Garrett Wilson because he's going to be wasted in a lot of ways, I think.
Man, that's a shame. I mean, and again, we're not Jets fans, but it's like you just wanted to see it. You just wanted to see it evolve and what it looked like.
Yeah.
And now it's like, and it's funny. You look at the comments, a lot of comments across social media, and a lot of people who are not Jets fans, but were fans of this hype train that has been moving forward at such a rapid pace since late April.
Right. Now
it's been derailed. And like, man,
Yeah, and I don't I feel for Jet. I can appreciate it. Like we always as Philadelphia fans feel like we're the cursed ones, right? Yep. It's always something bad's going to happen. It's inevitable, whatever. This is a minute where you take a step back and you say that team's cursed.
Jeez.
You know what I mean? Like you want to talk about cursed, they're cursed. But anyway, yeah. So that's tough. This one's a sad one, Gunner. Mike Williams.
Oh yeah.
Remember he hung around as a receiver in the NFL for a few years. Passed away at the age of 36. He was in intensive care in a hospital in Tampa. He got hurt on a construction site. He's just trying to make a couple bucks. It left him paralyzed, and he ended up passing away from it. He had 223 catches, 3,000 yards, 26 catches in his career. He played for Tampa and Buffalo, and just sad, just sad. The guy's taken so young. It's tough.
36 years old. And he has an 8-year-old daughter. And that's really sad. His daughter and him will never have that bond again.
Yeah.
And the guy's just trying to make a living,
Yeah. It's hard. It's tough. More injuries to hit you with. And it's a shame because I really like this guy as a player. J.C. Horn.
Yes.
Corner for the Panthers. He was just 18 games his first 2 seasons with injuries.
Yeah. Always
he's not going to play. Yeah, he's not playing Monday night. He's another guy with a hamstring.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Again?
And they think he's going to be out multiple weeks.
And he's a really good cornerback also.
Yeah. Yep.
My goodness, these hamstring injuries this year, man, are like, it's almost like COVID, It's like you can't stop across the league. Everybody's coming up with hamstrings.
Yep.
Green Bay's number 1 receiver, Christian Watkins, didn't play because of a hamstring injury. And it goes back to what all these old players are saying. The soft tissue injuries are because they don't train the way they're supposed to properly train to get to a regular season.
Yep. Yep. All right. So, we always talk about how we're worried about the Eagles return game and all that. And they, it was fine on Sunday. There wasn't a major issue, but NFL rules makers in week 1, they changed things up with you could fair catch now, the kickoff and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
They had an historically low 20.5% kickoff return rate. Yeah. So the reason they're doing this is they want to avoid the big hits on kick returns. But isn't that crazy, man? The touchback rate was 77.6%.
Which means they're getting what they want. They don't want those collisions. I remember when we first started talking about what they're doing to negate the run backs. And then the studies come out about how many of the head trauma injuries that are not talked about that are related to the collisions in kickoff, the coverage team and the return team. And that was when they jumped up and said, we got to do something to lower that. And they have done a good job of that. From our perspective, of growing up in the days of watching some of the most phenomenal return guys get the ball to goal line and trying to weave his way upfield.
Yeah.
I miss those moments. Those moments are so few and far between now, because 90% of everything is a touchback, but the players are staying healthier, and that's the most important thing, I guess.
Yes. So I don't know if you saw any of this, but Jim Trotter, who was a longtime NFL reporter, he won the Pro Football Hall of Fame's 2023 Bill Nunn Award.
Okay.
He has sued the NFL over his firing from the NFL Network.
What?
Technically, he wasn't renewed, but I mean, whatever, he wasn't renewed, but he's now with the Athletic, but he filed a lawsuit in the U.S. Southern District of New York that names the NFL, NFL Enterprises, and NFL Network Services as the defendants. And he recounts the NFL's alleged history of systematic discrimination over the years. Kaepernick, some of the stuff with John Gruden, the lawsuit that Brian Flores has filed, et cetera.
Right.
So he's going hard after the NFL here, Gunner.
Well, you know what? If you feel you got a leg to stand on, why not?
Yep.
He's two things: he's going to win or lose, and if he wins, he's going to look real good in the end.
Yeah.
I don't blame him. Unless there was justifiable cause. I mean, as a network, we're in the business, Rob.
Right.
You get a job, you get fired. It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
Now, if he's going after them, there's got to be a specific reason why. And even if a company tells you, "Hey, we're going to renew you," and don't, that's their prerogative.
Yep. I've been lied to.
I'm same here.
Mm-hmm.
Same here. No question.
And I'm not comparing myself to Jim Trotter. I'm just saying, to your point, I've had higher ups promise me things, and then suddenly it goes bye-bye. So it has happened.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. And you know what? They can get away with it because they can. Yeah. Now, it's on you whether or not you feel you have a strong enough leg to stand on and challenge it. Okay?
Now, let me throw this out there, because the Pegulas who own the Bills shot back and denied this, but this was in the filings that Jim Trotter put in there. He said, during a meeting, an NFL media reporter described a conversation he had with Bills owner Terry Pegula, in which Mr. Pegula was speaking out about the recent emphasis on social activism by NFL players, in particular Black Lives Matter. As reported, Mr. Pegula said that if Black players don't like it, they can go back to Africa and see how bad it is.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
All right. Now, Pegula has out now denied that ever happened. There's also reference to Jerry Jones. And Jerry Jones, I'm going to pull up what he said too, if I could find it here. But he's also nailed in this thing too. So it ain't pretty, my man. It ain't pretty. All right, here's what Jerry said. Alleged. Another example, Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, responded to a question posed by Mr. Trotter regarding the dearth of Black professionals in decision-making positions for NFL teams by stating, quote, "If Blacks feel some kind of way, they should buy their own team and hire who they want to hire," unquote. So
Jerry said that?
That's allegedly what Jim Trotter is saying. They're both alleged. Okay. I'm just telling you what was in his filing, but yeah, that's what he claims Jerry said.
Now you got two entities doing damage control. Um, that's a tough one, Rob, because there are a lot of players that feel that even as we sit here today in 2023, the NFL is still an old boys network and it's run by old way of thinking. And even though the old way of thinking is smart enough for the most part to not say what they feel, because every topic we discuss nowadays is such a sensitive topic. If those two said that, the NFL has to step in and hit them hard. And I don't know if you're not going to take away their franchises for something like that, but you have to hit them really hard where it hurts. But you got to prove it first. If it's a he said, she said, you're never going to prove that. It's going to go back and forth forever.
That's the thing. I mean, it sounds like he did the interview with Jerry, so he might have that on tape. The other one sounds like it was hearsay. The Pagula one sounds like somebody told him that. So that, I don't know how you prove that unless somebody, and in this day and age, everything might be captured. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
But
right.
I don't know. I'm just passing it along. And, again, that is some powder keg kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like that's some big time stuff.
Those two owners better hope there's no tape trail, paper trail, or something like that.
Yep.
If it's on tape, how do you come back from that in a league where your workforce is more than 70% African American?
I know. It's unbelievable. Hey, I mentioned Cameron Hayward. He's going to have groin surgery, Derek.
See, he's a great player too.
He is a stud.
It hurts.
Yeah, that's a big time loss. That's a big time loss for Pittsburgh. I hate to see that. I mentioned Deontay Johnson. They're looking at a few weeks there for him. This was interesting. Kirk Cousins did not have a great week one, but as you would expect, his coach has his back. It was a kind of an ugly game. The end of the first half, and their loss. Cousins tried to squeeze one into KJ Osborne at the goal line, and then with the score 10-10, had at least one chance to take a 3-point lead, if not go into the break. Cousins' pass was intercepted. That ended that threat, etc. Look, basically, O'Connell's saying, I want this guy to stay aggressive. He made some mistakes. We understand that. I think he's also saying this in anticipation of the Eagles game because he turned it over 3 times in that game as well.
You have to.
Sure.
You have to. You can't back off. If you start backing off and if you're hesitant and you're not going to win that way. You cannot be afraid to make mistakes in this game. Everybody makes mistakes. You just have to come back stronger and smarter. So I agree with 100%. We're not going to change anything. We just have to clean up some things that we didn't do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And look, Kirk Cousins isn't going anywhere. You know what I mean? It's like he's a free agent at the end of the year, but it's that you're living. He's your guy.
Yeah. You're not going to bench the guy. Who's behind him? Whoever's behind him, you're not putting him in the game. He gives you the best option.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you. Yeah.
He's been around the block too many times. He knows what he did and what he has to do.
Yeah. Yeah, no question. All right, so a couple other odds and ends. I think when you just, I want to get back to the Jets for a minute. The one thing I would say about that game, I wonder. Do you wonder about this too with Zach Wilson? Like, did he have enough of time sort of out of the spotlight for a minute to sort of reflect, watch how Rodgers goes about things? Like, did he get enough where we're going to see at least a more mature guy? Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. I don't know if it was a long enough respite that he's going to be different from what he was. Because I think part of his problem was immaturity. Let's face it.
Yes. If we take him at his word, where he said ever since Rodgers got there, that I'm learning a wealth of information from this guy, then I expect to see a better quarterback. Now, obviously, putting him in an emergency situation like that against that Buffalo defense, that's a little bit uncomfortable. Like I said, we said he only made one glaring mistake, and he was okay the rest of the way. And he got the job done good enough to help that team get a win. Mm-hmm. But now, moving forward, now that it's his show until further notice, I'm going to see the improvements that he's been talking about since May into training camp about how Rodgers has helped him become better as a quarterback.
Yeah.
Because if he's not, then the Jets are going to have to make a huge decision in terms of who's quarterbacking this team.
Right. And that's the thing. Look, I think he's going to get at least, what would you figure, 3-4 games rope? Because that will allow you to get somebody in there, get him acclimated to the system. Yeah. It's giving Wilson some time. You're not just knee jerking him if he has one bad game or one bad series. I think that's about a fair number. Now I'm looking at what the Jets have coming up.
Yeah.
They have Dallas this week, Derek. And once you get past Dallas, schedule wise, after that, it goes, it's not easy here. Then they're home against New England.
Oh,
oof. Home against Kansas City.
Oh, no.
At Denver. Home against the Eagles. Bye week at Giants. That's he's not getting any gimmies there.
No, before you get to that Giants game, there's a lot of landmines to sidestep.
Damn. Woof.
I would not want to be in that situation, but you know what? You can only move forward. You can't go backwards.
Yeah, man. All right. Let's. That's tough. That is tough. Let's get a timeout in here, Gunner. Let's come back. We got some birthdays. We got some movies. We'll get it back to the birds as well. We got a lot more show in store for you. Don't go anywhere. He is Derek Gunn. I am Rob Ellis. We'll be right back.
I remember getting my heart broken when they lost the Super Bowl in 2004. We're big Eagles fans. We moved to South Philly because of the Eagles. When they won, we went straight to Broad Street, and everybody was going nuts over there, and it was just a memory that you'll never forget.